So I guess suppose it depends what, or are you basically using something that's
We use Redshift right now.
Okay, but so essentially that means you must use an NVIDIA graphics card. And so at that point, depending on your scene complexity and all the rest of it, you have to ask questions like how much VRAM do you need and yada yada yada. And basically, I believe, again, this is up for people's own perceptions. But if you need so much memory of VRAM, it might be more cost effective to basically go with a CPU, basically based rendering, and then scale out at mass. But if your shots are very, very small, the assets are light, you can get away with like say 8 gigs of VRAM, great. But it probably depends on the job, or there's not like a definitive black and white answer. So, but yeah, that's a question that we're kind of going through at the minute and taking a look at that.
We were also talking about last night. It is early, right? I think we're all pioneers that are stepping into this, and it's exciting from the standpoint that it's unexplored, and we think there's a lot to tap out of that environment. But I think it's fair to say there's a lot of scenarios, even cost. Like I cannot advocate for anybody to, if they've just refreshed their operations room full of the latest gear, there's no point in going public cloud. There just isn't. Now I will say, design-wise, I still triple down on the whole microservices thing. There's still high value in changing the way that you construct your pipeline, so that when you can take advantage of the hybrid or the public, that you're positioned to do that. Plus, there's just good reason to do it anyway for a lot of these other companies that are out there, even outside our own domain, that have moved to that. But I will say, what's nice about it is the variability. So if you find that you're not at that point financially, you're a smaller company, you don't want to buy into all of that, I agree, you got to get creative. And I think getting creative by pulling it all in on your own hardware and hoping for the best on those gaps, it's a dangerous game. I think leasing when available, and when you're bigger, it's what you're saying. I 100% agree, which is more in our area, right? Where we just got purchased by a big company. They like to do lots of stuff. They got theme parks. So the thing is, we only have so much capacity, literally physical capacity. We can only stuff so many more machines in there. They have to get cooled, and there's power. And so the reality is, it's more like your energy bill, right? It may be okay to go to tier 3 because you're okay with that. You want your air on. So there's a certain spend if you have a very valuable director that wants real-time feedback and you want to push more to the farm to give that director back more. You have that dial now. And so even though we're talking a little more spend, it's capability is what you're getting at. So
and I'd be interested in, after the talk, hearing what some of the metrics that you're seeing from that are, and how does your frame render time change when you're on a GPU versus a CPU? Because the promise, as we hear from NVIDIA, we hear from Unreal and everybody else, is that real-time ray tracing, all this stuff is going to be incredible. It's going to speed everything up. The reality of it going into production might be a little bit different. But no matter how you slice it, those chips are really expensive. And for a cloud provider, they're really expensive to deploy because they're fat. They take a lot of power, as a result, they need a lot of cooling. So in a cloud colo, that ends up, it's hard to deploy those because, in the same physical space that I can deploy a stack of, Xeon, 36 core CPUs, I can have maybe a quarter rack of GPUs. But it still takes up that same amount of floor space and yet probably uses twice the amount of power. So that's what makes it hard for GPU on cloud scale to be more cost effective. But if the performance is there, and if the productivity of the artist goes up because they can just keep iterating, they can get much higher quality results with the same with the same level of time investment, then it becomes worth it. And then the service providers will look at that and say, well, if the economics are working out for the customers, then it'll obviously percolate through and we'll do more of it.
Well, one of the ways that we've approached these types of questions, from lots of different interdependencies, when a client is looking at how do we become a better digital business, how do we move towards this maybe multi-cloud model, is that if you have the time and you're able to step back and do a complete assessment. We like to look at everything from workflow, pipeline workflow, application portfolio, to underlying on-premises infrastructure, current people and process, as well as risk profile of the environment. What compliance do you need to adhere to? And then if you can allot some time for R&D and for testing, CPU versus GPU, building machines, seeing what the user experience looks like, leveraging cloud, and then come back with a real plan. And the plan covers both pipeline, it covers the on-premises need, it covers how can cloud be tied in a way that's maybe more containerized on the render side, and then how do you do that in a secure way that aligns with trusted partner network requirements, and if you can step back, and if you have the resources internally to do all of that, I think you can then also align the economics to it to say that this isn't just a good idea technically. This is going to allow what every business and creative wants and needs, and that's to be more efficient and to be opportunistic. Creativity in business inevitably needs to be able to be opportunistic. And I think that when you can really design it in that fashion and for those reasons, you enable the artist, you enable the business to thrive.
Just one thing I'll maybe add to that. In addition to if people have their own on-prem render farms, and if it's more than like say 3, 4, or 5 years old, you should replace it. Because obviously, again, if you're burning all that electricity, rack space, power, licensing costs, you would really benefit from having some new CPUs. We've been testing some Intel competitor CPUs, and they're awesome. So it's really, really, really impressed with those CPUs, and so it's cool. And,
Well, yeah, and one last thing to jump in, because I like hearing questions like that, because I feel like if you're early in, and this is our gamble for our studio too, right? You can help influence the public cloud providers out there, right? They're all over, and they're hungry for our business because we eat CPUs, potentially GPUs. So they're listening now more than I've ever seen them listen. So for those early in, you're going to be more influential, trust me. So I keep asking,
Less technical question. So as someone, I think there's a lot of people like me who worked in production for many years, traveling all over the world to where the interesting projects are, but then ultimately ending up as an engineer because you can work remote. I would never give that up, but I imagine that if that was an option to be a remote artist, I would go back in a heartbeat. So my question is, I'm wondering about the workforce you guys see, like maybe success stories or some of your clients. Like, do you see the people who are attracted to those companies change? Are they sort of like, older, more experienced, like veteran artists? And does that also provide some incentive? And also, like, where's a list of these companies?
Right.
Right.
Yeah. It's a good question.
Yeah, I'll maybe put my Jellyfish hat on and try and answer that. But you're right. I think basically, especially for the more senior people who basically want the flexibility of not commuting in and out of a major city, that is very appealing to them. So we've just basically launched a small studio in the north of England, and basically it's 100% Teradici basically delivered. So basically people can show up there, they basically log into work just as if they were in central London. And I think from producers like Workforce, we're actually kind of going to where the talent is rather than expecting them to basically come and sit in a desk in central London. In addition, if they could afford to basically buy a one-bedroom apartment in London, they would sell it and they can buy a 6-bedroom house outside of the city.
So how far are we away from not having any physical space and people just logging in?
Oh,
anywhere?
I see. Well, that's probably that would depend on how important your teams can communicate and the things of what caliber of job and the complexity of the job.
Well,
I mean, technically you can do it now.
So a lot of that is going to depend on the studios, or in a more general sense, the content holders, because the underlying security context is that if you're working on something that is highly sensitive, it's under the tent. Are they going to let you log in from your home office? It's going to depend on if somebody's come out and done a security evaluation. Do you have an electronic badge system on your bedroom so that the kids aren't going to be able to get in there and take a picture of it? So on very important content, the remote work scenario, I think it works in cases like Jellyfish, where they have a place that does have key locks or electronic locks on it, and the artist can come there and do their work. And for commercials, for a lot of episodic TV, low to mid-tier feature film, that's probably going to be an important and growing segment of the artist community. But it's going to be dictated by the content holder.
I just want to say to your question that it's something that our team at Redesign is very interested in, and we have an initiative called Artist Anywhere, and we could see, in working with many clients, the trend towards wanting to be more attractive, to be able to find talent where talent is, and that the concept of Artist Anywhere was something that was appealing to them because they could go and compete for that talent more effectively. There's inherent challenges, obviously, with latency and depending on the type of work you're doing in applications and things of that nature, but we could have a follow-up conversation if you'd like. We're working on a complete production pipeline that would leverage on-premises and cloud-based infrastructure that would hopefully allow coherent pipeline, coherent data architecture with the ability to spin up virtual workstations with all of the software tool sets that might be needed. I think that we need to enable this way of working and the opportunity for creatives to participate in projects wherever they might be.
Yeah, there's actually a good example, a recent one of, I think, Survivor South Africa. Not that I'm pitching it with this South African accent. But in fact, I heard it's...
Not very good.
I don't know, they might have a producer of Survivor South Africa in the crowd here. But recently, the editors had to they would do their remote filming, and then they'd fly into these editorial bays in I think in Johannesburg. So these editors were flying in and out, and since they've virtualized their editorial suites, these editors can remain in the field and just dial in. So that's just a huge time and cost saving.
Well, and interestingly, you can use cloud in that kind of a scenario, not just for virtualizing physical space, but you can take artificial intelligence to do content analysis and reduce maybe even the need for an editor to even look at a lion's share of this content. Talking about case studies, we worked with the group End of All Shine doing Big Brother UK. And because they've got 27 or 30, however many cameras in this house that's constantly filming 24/7, generates an unbelievable amount of content. There's just no way that even a huge team. I mean, you could all be editors and all be looking at this footage at the same time, and you still wouldn't be able to get through it in real time to find the stuff that's interesting. But you start doing visual analytics, and you let the AI look at the scene material. Is there black space? Is nothing moving in this this set of frames? If that's the case, then nobody needs to look at it. Just cut it out of the daily feed. So that's what I was saying up front, that it's looking at production as well, as Doug said, as an entire pipeline. It's production of all elements of content that that's where cloud can contribute, because it's not just about can I get enough CPU and storage. It's are there services that I can leverage that I'd never be able to build on my own, but that I can just flip a switch and turn on in my environment.
And I would just say that from a security perspective, I think that when everybody wants to work in a way that is flexible and remote, right? Where your question was about, I think that it's going to be enabled when studios do build pipelines that have integrated security from using cloud native context, and I think this is happening. I think we have looked at a studio that does that, where they have a large number of folks that are using VDI infrastructure, and they can be all around the world. So I personally think that it is coming. It's going to happen, but it's going to happen for appropriate content. It's not going to happen for blanket for the industry. But it's only going to happen when studios really take security very seriously. They start building in and leveraging the cloud native logging and monitoring and data protection mechanisms. And then once they know about those, and once they know about integrated federated identity kind of thing where they can manage people, then we're not very far away, because we have all the tools to do this today. We have all the the technology from latency and performance perspective. As long as the security comes in and ties everything together, people are building building instantiation that actually do work and will enable you to do that.